And we're live, except we're not live because this is pre-recorded. Um, so this is the Unite show, and today we only have two of our how many is that? Five listed hosts.
I think
Um,
so, yeah.
because the rest of them either don't have an audio setup or they have one but it sounds bad. Um, and I am Sim or Simnet on the graphic, and the other host with me is Spudnut 2000. Um, I don't know if you're doing a first name thing. I'm not, but
Nah, Spudnut 2000 is fine.
okay. Um, so this is going to be a tech-based podcast. It has to do with programming or some. I guess we could do a gaming segment sometimes. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
uh, Hardware, it would be good too, especially once you start getting more into Internet of Things and stuff. That
hmm
will come more into play. I have an entire server cabinet that we can talk about occasionally, I guess. Um, so the rest of the hosts, Sweats may or may not show up ever. He's kind of dead in the community right now, but appears occasionally, and he may join us sometime. Storm and all those numbers is MIDI, and he probably will be a host at some point, along with Trev, who likes fourth. uh, I don't know.
Cut.
No, we can't do
We
that.
can't. Yeah.
um, so I guess we would go on to segments and stuff next. So I guess our possible segments that we could have are um, different programming languages, news about programming languages, some concepts that people might have, different I guess uses. We could do web development segments, and then you know systems applications sort of stuff, like developing actual like desktop applications, or server software that's running on headless OSs.
Yeah, definitely. Because each of our members have their own little things that are their thing. Like Sweats is our Java guy. Trev is our fourth guy. Me and Symphony are kind of the web devs, and I'm not sure what Storm does for a living.
MIDI. He's kind of a sysadmin, which is what I'm doing too.
Yeah,
So we can relate on that as well. I
he,
mean,
he he's kind of all over the place. Sysadmin, doing other programming languages and stuff. We're all pretty much Linux users, I believe.
yeah. I mean, we've all at least used Linux at one point or another if we're not using it right now. I mean, I'm on macOS right now and I use Windows, but I also
Yeah, I'm
have
on.
Linux machines and stuff.
But yeah, we all have our own little things that we'll probably bring guests on, or just kind of pair up and talk about each individual thing depending on the theme, I guess, of the episode, or the topic of the episode.
Yeah, the topic or the theme of the episode will depend on who the hosts are and what they decide that they want to talk about. Which I guess is a perfect segue into what we want to talk about today. um, which is so the first thing is the GitHub purchase, I guess, which is kind of an interesting thing, especially with
It is.
the amount of money that Microsoft paid for it, which is like, I don't know, way more than what GitHub actually brings in per year. So,
hmm I think it was
um,
7.5 billion.
yeah, and GitHub was only valued at like 2 billion, so
hmm
it's definitely an interesting purchase. But I guess Microsoft probably has the money. More
Oh
interesting
yeah.
is all of the people who left GitHub and moved to GitLab over this sort of thing, which are different source code management softwares for
Yeah,
anybody who might not
definitely.
know.
Um, like I think GitLab actually the servers crashed because so many people were moving their projects over
Which
at
is kind of
one.
awesome because I mean, GitLab is besides just being, I think it has a better interface. It's open
It
source,
most definitely does.
and you can host it on your own, and you don't have to pay for private repositories that way. And that's one of
Hmm.
the biggest reasons why I never used GitHub. I mean, I used it for other people's software, but I wouldn't host anything of mine on there just because I tend to like to have stuff in a good working state before it's open to the public, and private repositories are a good way to do that. So,
Yeah,
um,
definitely. I've had, I've been with GitLab since about 2014, 2015, around that area. Um, and I've definitely always loved GitLab better. I would, host, some more not necessarily secret projects on GitLab. Maybe it's more important ones, but I would still use GitHub just for discoverability. I guess that was really the only thing GitHub has over GitLab is discoverability.
yeah, I mean, it was more popular and stuff, so that was definitely part of it. And I mean, as far as the private repository thing, I mean, none of my, I mean, I would release the code that I have on my GitLab server to somebody else if they wanted it. But mostly the reason I keep it in private repositories is because nobody else is going to use it. I mean, what I'm doing is pretty much specific to my server cabinet and the operations that I'm hosting on there. So there's not much point in having it in a public repository.
Exactly. But yeah, so do I think Microsoft is going to ruin GitHub? Eh, maybe not completely ruin GitHub. Definitely, it has pushed a lot of GitHub users away. And I feel like it. I don't see where they're coming from. It being a good thing for open source.
Yeah, I guess I
Like,
don't understand that either. I mean, it's not going to be any better or worse. I guess Microsoft has more money to pour into it as far as open source goes if they really care about open source, but I don't see Microsoft as a company like that at this point. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I just not at this point. That's not what I'm seeing. So
mhm.
it could go anyway, and I guess that I'm interested to see what happens, mostly because I don't use GitHub, so I don't really care what happens to it. To be honest about it, you know.
Yeah. So that's kind of our opinions on that. We're not too worried about what exactly is going to happen. We don't think anything like major is going to happen. Like nothing's going to be groundbreakingly good or bad from the purchase. But it definitely pushed the community away. Some people are all for it, and then some are just like
Yeah, it's a very polarizing
absolutely.
issue between the people that that are for it and against it, and
It's
I
almost politics.
yeah, there's not very many people in the middle ground about this, but I guess time will tell.
Time will definitely tell.
Mm-hmm.
So moving right along,
Oh,
as a side topic, I guess. Mac OS releasing a dark theme
oh
in
yeah.
2018 for the
Finally,
first
I
time.
mean, it's 2018 and they're finally letting people use a dark theme or any theming at all in their operating system. I mean, I've had a Mac for quite a while and I've been using them for longer than I've actually owned one, and you've never really been able to theme it like in a way that's actually supported by OS 10 or anything like that, and or OS 9 for that matter, but that was a long time ago. But this is definitely like if nothing else, um, just just a really cool thing. But I think it might maybe could be Apple moving forward and actually letting people customize their operating system, because I know I've heard people say that one of the reasons that they don't want to use a Mac is because the operating system is so uniform, and there's no
Locked down.
yeah, there's no customization there. You can't make it yours or individual. It's all you know.
Hmm.
So I guess that's a cool thing. Not necessarily a big huge thing. There were some other
Yeah.
um, additions to OS 10, I guess, in Mojave that they are adding, but I don't know what they are. I mean, I know what they are, but I don't know enough to talk about them right now, so I'm not going to, so.
Yeah. So the dark theme, it's not a huge deal. It's just it's something that um like you said, maybe it's Apple moving forward and actually letting people have some form of customization, because it's just like iOS. It's completely locked down. You can change your background on the phone, but you can't really change your interface much,
Yeah,
and
I think
it's
my biggest
kind of
thing
just
with
gets boring.
yeah, yeah. My biggest thing with iOS, I think, is like with Android on my Android phone, I can I can choose a different launcher, or I can customize my home screen with different themes, or the entire device with different themes, depending on what kind of phone you have. And there's just so many different flavors of Android that it makes it more of an interesting experience when you get a new Android phone than versus an iPhone that looks the same and acts the same. Sans
As
the
every other iPhone. Yeah.
sans the iPhone 10, which is a little bit different, I guess, at this point. But I don't know if that's in a good way. I mean, the notch,
Hmm.
and especially Android phones following the notch, which is kind of irritating because the reason that people like Android is because it's not like an iPhone. So just copying what the iPhone did is kind of dumb, in my opinion. But the notch is just bad design because it takes up so much space at the top of your phone. I mean, you're losing, your notification space. Not, I don't know if iPhones really display notifications up there though, but it's just taking up a lot of space that it doesn't really need to take up, and it makes things look crowded, I guess. So there's no battery
Hmm.
percentage now because of the notch.
Yeah, see, that would irritate me because I'm always checking my battery to see where it's at. If I'm gonna have to preserve my battery,
Yeah,
say I'm out
exactly.
somewhere. I need to make sure that my phone's not gonna die in case of emergencies.
I mean, and like, what are we in? 2005 when we had flip phones that had like
Hmm.
three different battery lines. I mean, what is this? What's the point? But whatever. I guess that's what Apple does, and people are gonna follow Apple no matter what. So.
Yeah, most definitely. So moving away from one big tech company
Oh,
to
wait, wait,
another.
wait, wait, wait. I guess if this, if we were gonna have sponsors, which we don't, this would be the place to put them. But instead of doing sponsors, I'm going to interject a little bit and advertise the forums.
There you
Um,
go.
so basically, oh boy, I didn't check this scene before I started recording. The desktop scene may not work, but we'll find out in just a second.
Technical difficulties.
Oh no, it worked. Cool. Um, so that's interesting. Firefox is not sized properly for OBS. Guess we will make it smaller. Um, so the forms is basically just a form that I set up, and that we kind of manage. And it was an idea that was in the works for a long time between the admins and some of the users in the chat, or some of the users who are now admins in the chat. Um, called and it's called Trial and Error, and basically, it's just a development community for more prolonged discussions based on programming, or Internet of Things, or hardware, or really anything at this point. I mean, we have our off-topic section that has photography and graphic design and ricing, which is something that I didn't even know about until I made this category, which is basically just showing like what your desktop config looks like. This is Trev's i3 config, which I think there's no config here. It's just a screenshot, but that's fine. Um, it's you show off your desktop interface, or window manager, or whatever you're using. I don't know how much of that happens in Windows, because what is there to show off in Windows? But oh look, it's
You
the
got that right.
podcast post I made. Two of the votes say yes. 0 of the votes say no. Total votes 2. So yeah, the forums aren't very active right now, but that's something we've been trying to work on, is getting people to go to the forums, because the more active it gets, the bigger the community will be. It'll grow the Telegram community as well as the forum community, which will be good for both of them. And I don't know. I think it's easier to discuss, more prolonged discussions or plans or whatever in a forum-based communication medium rather than Telegram chats, because the topic changes so rapidly, and there's so many more people involved in the same space, because it's just one chat with the 200 people instead of an entire website with different sections that some people might not even visit some of the sections. So I just think that the forums are a bit of a more organized space to be talking about things, whereas the Telegram chat is a more uh, I don't know how
kind
to
of
say it.
kind of more of just like a hangout kind of place.
That's that's a good way to put it. And I mean, we have the off-topic chat and the on-topic chat. Not that, I don't know. Sometimes people are very off-topic all the time. But
He pointed his finger at me, but you didn't see it.
But yeah, that's the forums, I guess. So there will be a link in the video description to the forums, and wherever else this goes. If there's a way to add a description, this link will be there. I think I'll probably do like timings for each segment, and like 2 minutes is the first segment or whatever, so that we can people
Yeah, like
are only
a time
interested.
index.
Yeah, so that people are only interested in some topics can just go straight to them. If that's, I don't know who's even gonna watch this, but it's fine. So
All right, so I guess we move on now to the next topic
yeah,
of
this is big.
Intel and their 28 core 5 gigahertz processor that was overclocked.
Yeah, so basically, and it wasn't a named processor or anything, but I think it was Computex, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They did a machine that basically was a 28 core what they advertised as a 28 core 5 gigahertz unnamed processor, that Intel showed off is coming out in the fourth quarter of the year, um, which is supposed to be enthusiast oriented and mainly for people like that. But basically what they did was they said it was a 5 gigahertz processor, and they didn't say that it was overclocked. And when people found out that it was overclocked, they also found out that there was literally like a air conditioner attached to the back of it, that was cooling the CPU, because it apparently was overclocked quite a bit. So basically, so I guess, according to the article on Ars Technica, it was a chilled water cooler, which is capable of handling thermal loads of up to 1.77 kilowatts.
Wow.
So that's a lot of heat. So I don't know how much heat was actually coming off of the CPU that they needed that, or if they could have just used like a regular. I suppose if they could have just used a regular water cooling solution, they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't have been able to go all the way up to 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that was generating a lot of heat.
Yeah, and plus, they're still at like large amounts of nanometers as far as their process goes, and AMD is already down to like 7, I think, which is pretty good, and that says a lot about this whole showcase that they had. Because basically what's happening right now is AMD is completely showing up Intel.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And Intel's got to stay in the game somehow. So apparently, lying about a 5 gigahertz processor is their strategy on that one.
I mean, who would even need a 5 gigahertz 28 core processor for anything other than?
I mean, exporting video, I guess, but
if you're rendering some heavy red footage maybe, but that's more GPU based than
Yeah, like I
processor
said, I mean,
based.
you could do like video exporting on it, but like I'm doing 4K video exporting on my 2012 MacBook Pro, so
So it's like, why even lie about the 5 gigahertz?
yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess I sort of get it, but they backtracked in such a way. I guess that they said that the person who was showing off the processor forgot to mention that it was overclocked. But if that was the case, then why did they do so much to hide the air conditioner or whatever unit on the back of the computer? It just seems kind of
Hmm.
sketchy to me, is all. So I guess
Yeah.
I guess it's definitely something to wait and see how it turns out. Um,
But yeah, I guess we kind of wait to see how far Intel digs themselves into the ground with this, and if AMD, I mean AMD's already kicking them, um,
yeah,
but
I mean they've got the Ryzen and Threadripper. Let's see, they got I think it's like Threadripper 2, which is I think they did a 32 core 64 thread CPU with Threadripper, and that wasn't overclocked and cooled with an air conditioner. So there's definitely a little bit of more truth to what AMD is showing off at Computex. Or that was where this happened, right?
I think it happened at Computex, yeah.
I don't know. It didn't say it in the article unless I missed it. Um, but whatever. I mean, and if they did release a 28 core 5 gigahertz processor or anything close to that, it would be quite a bit of money because right now their
It
28
would be
core
ridiculous.
Xeons. I mean, their 28 core Xeons are starting out at like 8 grand or something. 88,700 USD. So that's quite a bit.
I just feel that there's no market for that.
I mean, I guess in like super high, like massive virtualization loads, big, huge companies like Google Cloud Platform and AWS, that's a thing that people
Hmm.
are going to need. But I guess at the consumer level, definitely the consumer level, nobody's using that. And even at like the prosumer level, nobody's using that. And
Yeah.
even in like professional environments, people aren't really using 28 core Xeons. I mean, people are buying hosting from people who are using 28 core Xeons, but that's what they're made for. They're made for data centers,
Yeah,
not really anything other than that.
exactly. It's
But
meant to handle data center type loads, not necessarily anything, you just play games on it or whatever.
right, I guess I don't see why they would have showed it off at Computex at all. But
Hmm.
whatever. I mean, it's less interesting than the. This is going to be a great segue. It's less interesting than the dual screen laptop project Precog.
That was such a beautiful segue, man.
Right.
So my thoughts on it: artificial intelligence and machine learning are changing the face of computing. To quote the ASUS website on Project Precog.
I just don't see. Yeah, I guess that slapping artificial intelligence on literally every product you sell probably helps you sell the product a little bit more. But I don't see where the artificial intelligence and machine learning is coming from in this particular product. I mean, you have a keyboard that's on a screen instead of on a physical keyboard. So,
So suddenly it's AI. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean this. I wouldn't call it artificial intelligence. Sure, maybe it has some intelligent features and it's artificial, but it's not artificial intelligence.
yeah. I mean,
A
it's not
real
making decisions or anything.
exactly.
It's just a bunch of if statements in your code. Basically, is what it is.
Yeah, and maybe it's got some smart detection. Where depending on what side of the laptop you're using, that's where the keyboard comes up. They said something
Right.
about I think Linus did a video on it and said something about if you move the wireless keyboard near the laptop, that the on-screen keyboard goes away and stuff like that. But that's not really AI or machine learning. I
No,
mean,
it's
machine
just a
learning
sensor. I mean, do we
is
call cars AI because they have like O2 sensors and
mhm, exactly. It's
tire
their
pressure
brain.
gauges that automatically tell you when something's wrong? No, we don't. So, I don't know. It just seems dumb to add AI to everything. I guess it's probably a good marketing tactic, but whatever.
It's even
Um,
really, I guess maybe we're not understanding the whole machine learning part of it too, because I don't see where this is machine learning. I don't see, is it learning the movements that you make, how you use your laptop? Is
I
it
I guess they could
learning?
implement machine learning in a way with a keyboard so that maybe it like moves to, I don't know, typing hotspots or something. I don't know. Cuz the other thing about this is like feedback, haptic feedback with a touchscreen keyboard is going to be difficult. I mean, when the Surface Books, or not the Surface Books, but the Surface Pros and the Surface tablets and stuff came out, they had these at least the first one, they had this awful type cover, which was basically just a pressure sensitive um, thing that was supposed to be a keyboard. So instead of having any feedback whatsoever when you type, you just basically hit the surface and hope that you're actually hitting a key. Because
It was just like barely responsive.
yeah, there was no way to know if you were actually typing other than watching the screen, and it was hard to find where you were on the keyboard. And I don't know, it just seems like this is going to be even worse because it's on a touch screen. So they have, I think in the picture down here that, yeah, they have the lines on F and J for home row, but
But you can't actually feel them.
right,
It's like
they're
they're
just
not they're not there to look at. They're there to feel for, so you don't have to
right.
look down at your keyboard.
Yeah, they're just lines. They're visual lines, so you can actually see them, which is definitely going to be difficult as far as typing goes. I mean, some people eventually are probably going to get used to knowing where the keyboard is and just adapting to that, I guess. But even then, the keyboard moves depending on what you're doing with the laptop itself. I just think that this whole design concept is kind of irritating, and it's like a wow factor, I guess, but there's no real like benefit to this over a real
Yeah.
keyboard. And if anything at all, there's like less of um like not a benefit, but the opposite of that.
And going back to the processor, the 28 core processor, where's the market for this? I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, it's a wow factor sort of thing. It's a good concept, but who's gonna use this? I mean,
I'm
cause
not.
yeah, right, exactly. It's like if this is like the intermediary between a physical keyboard and like a HoloLens sort of like what you see in like games like Mass Effect and stuff, where they have these computers that are just like these holographic touchscreens, which is cool. And if there was something like that, I would probably use it. But that's not what this is, and I don't think that I would be able to deal with this because it's just, I don't know.
I mean, I hate touchscreen keyboards. I mean, I use it on my phone because I have to, but like if I don't have to, I usually have my Bluetooth keyboard hooked up if I'm
Well,
doing any
and it,
intense typing on my phone.
and it's like the landscape typing was cool when you had like a phone that popped up with like a
Hmm.
separate landscape like physical keyboard where it
Oh
was like
yeah.
useful to have a big keyboard like that instead of having to press the one button a million times to get an exclamation point or something. But when you make keyboards that are touchscreen landscape, it's just kind of irritating to use. I mean, how many people that aren't you know that are under the age of like, I don't know, 40 use their touchscreen keyboard on their phone in
In
landscape
landscape.
mode. I mean, like I can't do it. I've tried before, like especially on landscape apps, games that make you use your keyboard to like
Hmm.
enter your name or something. It pops up in landscape, and there's like this weird text box thing that looks like it's from 2001, and it's just terrible. And the user experience is horrible, and nobody likes to use it. I don't know. It's just
Yeah, definitely.
it's gonna be
See,
hard to.
even going to landscape and then laying your phone down on the table, even when with like a 6-inch screen, laying the phone down on the table and trying to type on it like a normal keyboard is just no, it doesn't work. And I know that this is supersized, that it's about
Right,
the
it's a whole
size of an
laptop,
actual
but
laptop keyboard, but it's like I could see so much, I see so much room for error in typing on that. Like, because when you're typing, your fingers aren't floating in the air. Usually, your hands are kind of laying over other
yeah,
keys as
they're
well.
sitting on the keys. Like when I type, my hands are sitting on the keys until I actually need to type. In which case, I just press down on the key. And I guess if they can do that with some sort of, I think Apple called it 3D Touch, but like Android has it. Like my S8, if you hard
Hmm.
press the home button, when the phone's locked or whatever, the screen's dark. If you hard press where the home button's supposed to be, it pops up, but if you soft press, it doesn't. So I guess if they can do some sort of pressure sensitive sort of thing like that, then I guess maybe it'll be
Maybe so,
okay.
but then you'd have to push down on the screen harder, and it would have to be on the entire touchscreen.
Yeah, yeah, and like with the newer MacBooks, I guess the newer models with the bigger touchpads and stuff, they don't actually have buttons. It's just a pressure sensitive thing, and I guess that a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people who wouldn't know that it's not really a button think that it's like a button, like the feedback, the haptic feedback, as far as when you click and the vibration and stuff, it feels like a real button, but that's different. It's like that's just a small non LCD touchscreen sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's just a
Mm-hmm.
it's just a touchpad. There's no screen under it. There's no possible breaking of the screen that's under it. And then this is going to turn into trying to keep a laptop super thin, and that's going to make it even more fragile as far as accidentally
Definitely.
cracking your screen when you're trying to type in a
Imagine
word angrily.
dropping this thing.
Oh,
Ooh,
yes, because there's no good side to drop it on either. At this point, I mean,
exactly. It's
you
like it's
can,
all glass,
right? You
pretty
can
much.
drop normal laptops on the bottom, and they're usually okay. But yeah, this
I
is
mean,
just a disaster waiting to
mine
happen.
has endured a lot, but if you go, kind of like the iPhone X, that thing it's a shatter magnet, I guess. I was trying to find a better word for that, but it didn't work.
Well, it's all
um,
glass, I guess.
yeah,
I think
exactly.
so.
And I think listening to Linus's video, I watched it, but I didn't pay much attention to it. But
Yeah,
I think like it's all glass around, and I know it's not a final design or anything, but
yeah, yeah,
I guess maybe one thing out of this is maybe for artists. That would be the only market I see this.
yeah. Because then you don't have to have a separate drawing tablet or anything. You can just have
Yeah,
your the bottom of your laptop and a stylus. But I don't know. That's really the only market I can see for it as an artistic sort of thing.
and
But
maybe because it's all touchscreen and stuff, they could find a way to almost not waterproof it, but make it
water resistant, that would be
water
good.
resistant, because there is no keyboard for water to go down into. The only thing water could really go into is the sides of the screen if they're not put on properly. I've seen plenty of
Yeah,
tablets and stuff that the screen is just put on there all janky and whatever, and the ports on the side
yeah. And the other
are.
thing I because they have apps on the bottom or like
Mhm.
Windows or whatever that are just resized on the bottom screen. In this picture on the ASUS website, they have like a chat window or something and some other garbage. But what's going to be difficult is there's like if you're supposed to be able to drag like with your I guess you could do it with a mouse. When I have a window attached or an extra monitor attached to my laptop, I can drag applications between each monitor. So what happens if you're trying to touch drag these applications up to the larger or the main
Yeah,
monitor?
I think Linus covered that in his video. Like he tried showing
Did he?
swiping one up. Yeah, I
I
think he did.
I saw that he posted a video, but I haven't watched it yet. So
Because the hinges are there in the way, so you can't like
yeah,
fully drag the window up. They'd have to implement some kind of momentum thing where you fling it up,
yeah,
and then that would just be irritating. Like
yeah. Because then
you're flinging the window.
you could accidentally, move windows between screens, and that's kind of an issue I already have with like I have a Surface Book somewhere, um, and like I don't know, I don't like touchscreen laptops at all because you go to brush something off the screen and you've moved 12
And you
different
touch it
things,
exactly.
and you've touched four windows and you've typed three different web
You've
tabs
opened command
into.
prompt
Yeah,
and
it's just
typed
it's a
shutdown all at the same
disaster,
time.
and I really hate touchscreen laptops, and I think that's one of the things that Apple's gotten right. One of the very few things Apple's like really gotten right over the years is that they really refuse to make a touchscreen laptop. Like they added the touch
Mhm.
bar, which is a whole different thing. I guess we could talk about that if we wanted to. Um, the but like having touchscreens on laptops just seems like a bad plan. unless I guess I can give it to you if your laptop will flip over and like the keyboard's on the back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in tablet
Cause
mode, basically.
yeah, cause my Surface Book does that. You detach the screen and flip it around and put it back on, and it's like it's a tablet, and it's got a little bit of elevation, and that's really cool, especially for artists. Which I guess removes some of the argument that the bottom screen can be used for artists, because if they just have a normal keyboard there, and you can like swivel it around or just flip it around so that the screen's on the back, then there's not really much artistic use for that second screen, because you could just draw directly on the screen with a stylus. I mean, like with the Surface Pen, it's a pretty good experience when you're drawing on there. I mean, I've had friends that say that they like drawing on my laptop a lot, that use a lot of art programs or just pen and paper even.
So I don't think there's any specs on this thing yet. I was scrolling through the page, and I don't see anything but an Intel Movidius. I don't know how you
Where's that?
pronounce that. It's almost all the way at the bottom of the page where it's got Amazon Alexa and
Oh,
Cortana,
yeah,
Microsoft. That
VPU. I wonder what that is. I'm gonna Google it now.
yeah, I am looking
um,
that up now. Let's see.
I almost wonder if it's like the Face ID thing that the Surface Books have.
Hmm.
Always on vision processor, machine
Yeah, I
vision
think
and
that
visual
that's
awareness. Yeah, I guess it's sort of what it is. I think it's probably a step further than that. But that will probably also be able to integrate like your
I mean, I guess
facial recognition.
that's where they're saying AI and machine learning. It says Movidius Neural Compute Stick, deep learning and AI. So
I guess that the AI could be, I mean, quote unquote AI, what they're calling AI, could be in the bottom half of the laptop where the keyboard's going to be and stuff, so that if well, but still, that if that's the Movidius Vision Processing Unit or whatever, if that's what's detecting that a keyboard was put up close to the laptop, it's still not really AI. I mean, if there's some
mhm.
sort of extensibility to that, it could be maybe considered AI depending on what it's doing, but not at this point. I mean, Alexa's not really an artificial intelligence, I don't think.
Yeah.
And that's what they're comparing it to. I don't know if Alexa is considered an artificial intelligence. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
because
you could technically call Alexa an AI. I mean, it is an AI. It is intelligent, quote unquote.
but is it
I
though?
mean,
Because I mean, basically all it's doing is it's taking voice queries and answering them. I mean, it's like calling those phone systems that answer the phone when you call your like electric company to pay the bill, an AI.
this is
It's
true. The
Of course, Alexa takes it a step further because it's connected to different things. But really, that's all it
Mhm.
is. It's just connected to, your standard like Google and other search engines and stuff. But it does, have the ability to make decisions based on what you're saying. So maybe
Yeah,
Alexa's an AI, but that's a whole different conversation, I guess.
and I mean, maybe we're just taking the word AI a little too literal
Yeah,
in
especially at
terms
this
of.
point in time. I mean, we're probably both pretty, well versed in, what we see as AI in video games and sci-fi, movies or whatever.
And
So,
robotics as well.
yeah, yeah, you're big on robotics, which, AI is
That's my jam.
definitely very closely, related with
Hmm.
robotics with a lot of people. Um, and I guess, you know,
Got to be a good topic for an episode.
yeah, definitely. Uh, I mean, and we can probably wrap this one up soon. I want to touch on the touch bar thing. um,
All right.
because I think that this laptop is a good way to compare Apple's touch bar solution to just a full on touchscreen on the bottom half of your laptop. Because
Yes.
I haven't had a ton of experience with the touch bar, but I've had a little bit of experience, and I think that some of the cons are that it removes like your escape button, and
Hmm.
I believe it removes your power button and your function keys, but it adapts to whatever you have open. So if you're sending a message like a text or whatever through iMessage and you want to add an emoji, you don't have to click anything. You can just click the emoji bar, which is kind of cool. Or if you're using Final Cut Pro 10 or whatever, and you want to scrub the video, I think that there's like I think you can just scrub with a touch bar, which is also kind of cool. It's a little bit more precise than using your touchpad or a mouse. So that adds a little bit of um, functionality with your different touch functions without completely removing the keyboard, which I think is very important because I think the
Mm-hmm.
keyboards are a very important part of laptops, and altering them
Definitely.
to this degree is kind of a big move, which I guess is why it's a prototype product and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
I'm gonna be the first to say it right here. I'm probably not the first to say it in the world, but I'm gonna be the first to say it here. I do not see this becoming a trend. The dual
no,
screen.
no, I don't either. I mean, and like I said, it's a niche market that would want it, or I think you said that maybe,
Artist. I
but
yeah, I think artist is probably like the only use case for this that I could see.
yeah, if them at all. I mean, and that's another thing I guess is video editing would be good, but I guess that could kind of fall into art. Not really. I don't know.
Yeah.
Video editing could be good because if you can, but of course that's not a Mac or anything, so I don't know. I've never used Premiere or whatever, but
I don't think it would have the specs to hold up to much video editing. I don't know. We don't know anything about the
yeah, there's
specs.
no
It
specs.
could be
So,
rocking
but
the greatest
trying to
deep
fit,
learning.
a graphics card, um, a battery, RAM, processing, cooling, and everything into this, and expecting it to still be a power user sort of machine without overheating and or anything like that is definitely a stretch. At the very least, is a stretch. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of this if there is any at all. They could just completely cancel it because they think it's dumb,
Mm-hmm.
like everybody else. But whatever, you know.
So yeah, so wrapping up on the laptop, um, you know, maybe some of the design choices might stick, but definitely not the dual screen.
I don't
don't.
think that will
Now,
stick. I really don't.
maybe this whole thing, them talking about AI and machine learning, and then fully enhanced AI features and all of this. Maybe that's in a completely different sense than the laptop being able to do things. Maybe maybe it is actually an AI computer, and we're just totally off base with everything we're saying.
Yeah,
But if
and it could be.
so, you can make an AI based computer like this one with a physical keyboard. I don't see why the dual screen is
And
necessary.
probably a lot more functionality to it. I mean, if you want to add like actual AI to something, do something like the touch bar, or like I think it was a Razer laptop a while ago where you flipped the trackpad over and it was actually a like little LCD screen with some different functions that you could use,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I think I saw that before.
that's like a good use of you
Yeah,
know
because I hate touchpads.
I can deal with them sometimes, and this is gonna sound kind of like Mac user ish, but the Apple touchpad is probably one of the best ones I've used. Because Apple and maybe my XPS, because I've used I have my work laptop is a Dell. It's a Latitude something or other. It's really old and gross, and I hate it. Um, but the touchpad on it is so bad, and the same is true for like most HP laptops I've used. I mean, they're okay, but they're still pretty bad. The that stupid touch cover thing for the Surface had a really bad trackpad on it. Um, that's all I can think of right now. My Surface Book's trackpad is all right, but
Mhm.
the Mac one is definitely the best one I've used in terms of responsiveness and just the feel of it. It's really smooth. I mean, like running your finger across this is like a pleasant experience.
Kind
Um,
of like those fidget cubes had those little rubbing stone spots on them.
yeah. I just really like the experience of the Apple Touchpad, and I don't think anybody else has really gotten to like that level of UX as far as a touchpad goes, and that's fine because a lot of laptops, main focus isn't really the touchpad, and a lot of people carry around a small USB mouse. But if we can get to the point where we
Like
don't need
me.
those, that would be cool. I mean, and those little mouse nipples or whatever in the middle of the keyboard is not the answer. Those are garbage, and I hate them. And there's so many reasons that they're terrible. But we won't get into that because we don't
You
have
have
another
triggered so
three
many
hours
ThinkPad
of
users.
podcast times. Yeah, I don't like ThinkPads either. So you can
That's
take
a
that,
topic for another day.
put that in your pipe and smoke it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I guess wrapping up, those are all the topics we have. This went a little bit longer than I thought it was going to. We're at 45 minutes now.
We definitely, there's a lot of things we're going to need to change the podcast. We're going to have to liven it up a little bit. We both kind of sound dead.
A little bit. Yep, I can see that. I mean, eventually, I'm going to have some better audio equipment and a better space to actually do this in, because right now there's blankets over the door to the server room, so that they're kind of dampened. I don't know how audible they are as far as the recording goes, but if they are, I can get rid of that in Audacity or Final Cut. But yeah, I mean, and any suggestions are welcome in the comments or on the forums. Please go to the forums, sign up, please, post, please.
All all links will be in the description, by the way, for all of the articles that we were reading.
The Telegram group will also be in the description as well.
Yes, definitely.
And any people from the Telegram group can obviously PM, me or Spud, not 2000.
And also feel free to join us in our Discord channel as well. We're probably not going to be as active on there. It's really, that's where we are talking right now, because we don't live in the same place. So we're talking over Discord. But we have a general channel and everything. So we'll put a link down in the description for that as well. So we can have, build ourselves a good community there as well, for, suggestions and stuff like that.
Yeah, feedback's important. Like I said, if you're in the Telegram group, feel free to send me a message or mention it in the chat. Although I'm not super active in the chat, I do check it sometimes. I want to add the tag bot to the chat so that people can tag messages with names or whatever, so I can track that. Yeah, post on the forums, comment if this goes on. I mean, it's gonna go on YouTube at the very least. Like, subscribe, share, do other things that help YouTubers. I'm not really a YouTuber. I don't know how this works, but we'll find out, I guess.
And if you are completely new to all of this, one, thank you for joining us. Don't know how you found us, but welcome.
Right.
And if you stayed this long, you're a trooper, because I was getting bored at my own voice. So, but yeah, if you're new to all of this, please, join the communities if you want to. Tell your friends about us, because we are very far away from being a big community.
Right.
We've got like 200 members, and like only a quarter of them are ever active. So
yeah, we should probably clean that out at some point. But
oh yeah, it's time for the purge.
Regardless, thanks for tuning in or watching or whatever, because this was not a stream. And we'll see you next time. There's no real schedule for these episodes yet. I mean, whenever they get out is when they get out, I guess. That'll have to be changed eventually, especially if we start making money off of this. I mean, we can probably schedule stuff. But yeah, thanks for watching, and subscribe and stuff. Bye.
Bye.
Wait. Now bye. Yes, bye.